As a young man, one of the worst things you can do as a young man is to take advice of entrepreneurs or successful people to heart, like to execute their advice to latter. I've shared the story when I came across the concept of burning your bridges in order to take over the island. What transpired is I funneled 100% of my income to this business. So investing in this business, I truly wanted the next tuition fee, the next rental fee to be the fruits of this business I have so invested in. Here in Africa, the prevalent rental collection method is on an annual basis, unlike the West, where it's a monthly payment. I'm just giving you context so you follow through the story. At the end of the year, the landlord comes along. Where's my rent, young man? Stuttering. "Oh, I'm going to pay you next week. I'm going to pay you next week." And after I have posted him for 3, 4 times, the situation now appeared as though I was playing on his kindness. I was trying to take advantage of him. Now you can imagine how impatient he was. Like I shared, it takes a year before you receive any kind of rental income on your property. So I'm trying to put it into perspective because the horror that follows after saying I could not afford the rent, trying to make it justifiable. So he comes along and says he's going to throw me out, make sure he humiliates me, make sure every single person sees me for the imposter I am. So he made all kinds of threats. He got on his knees, said I should pay him his rent. Now in that moment, confused, I thought that this entrepreneur said if you work as hard as possible, if you give it all you got, it's only a matter of time before you win. Unfortunately, in most cases, it's not like that. And I'm exposing you to the dark sides of this advice of which I have lived. Now it makes a cool story because I got on my knees with tears in my eyes and I said you would have to kill me than for me to give up on this dream. Long story short, I paid the rent off, but not from that business. Not from that business. It was as a consequence of the various relationships established. But the point I want to highlight is, would you become successful eventually? Of course, you would. If you're persistent, persistence preludes success. So if you're consistent, persistent, have the dogged mentality, you would achieve. But what most people don't understand is the time frame might not be like what you expected. It might not be it might not be the designated time frame. Now, I'm not trying to shit on advices of entrepreneurs or say don't take advice from people. It's impossible for you to become a success. I'm not trying to advocate for degeneracy or encourage mediocrity in your life. It's never going to happen. So why don't I just relax, chill, go to parties, waste my 20s doing fuck all? No, that's what I vehemently preach against. I am against you wasting your life, wasting your fruitful years, doing fuck all, wasting time. I hate things that waste my time. But the point I'm trying to highlight is when you take advice from these gurus, I want you to understand they are humans and humans are not impeccable. Impeccable means they are always susceptible to mistakes. At the infancy of my career, I believe this should be 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago. I came across this concept, this very influential guru. who said, breakfast is a scam. I don't eat breakfast. Breakfast was a concept introduced by Edward Bernays. He wanted to raise the price of meat and bacon. So he convinced doctors to introduce this idea of breakfast. And guess what happened? The prices of meat and bacon skyrocket. So at the infancy as a young man who wants to rebel against any kind of nepotism, not nepotism, despotism, who wants to rebel against any kind of authority, those messages are susceptible to you, or you are susceptible to those messages. Rebelling against any kind of authority. I would skip breakfast for months, getting skinnier by the day, all because of that one wrong narrative. Until I come along and I see a vlog of that same influencer. Hello XYZ, what are we having for breakfast today? Hold up, pause. Did you just say breakfast? The influencer responds, donuts with my name written on it. So the same guy who was against breakfast now has breakfast. As a consequence of that wrong narrative, that wrong teaching, I have lost weight, lost pounds. In the same vein, at the start of the church, there were wrong pastors. That was before the age of technology. So some of these messages were not recorded and highlighted for the internet to dispute such wrong narrative. So this preacher, he said, if you do not tithe, you're going to go to hell. So if you do not give to the kingdom of God, you're never going to make it to heaven. He came out, or if you do not tithe, you're never going to make it to heaven. He came out 30, 40 years down the line as a senior citizen. You know, the message I preached years ago, if you do not give tithes, you're never going to make it to heaven. It was wrong. I'm sorry. Everybody, fucking dumbass. Yes, I acknowledge your humility. Yes, I acknowledge the fact that you acknowledge that you're wrong. However, that teaching alone has cost people their savings. That teaching alone has cost people a lot of financial disrupts, of which you benefited from. Say so by your 100,000 capacity church. I don't want to go into the details. I don't want to go into the details before it appears as though I'm attacking some Christian guy. In fact, Christian, what do they call people who have ascended heights in Christian faith? A clergy, the general overseer of some big church. So I'm not attacking anybody. This is not stray bullet. I'm not trying to dispute any of his teachings or the veracity of his teaching or trying to falsify prophets. No, that's not what this channel stands for. I'm merely making a concise analogy, comparing what you said to what you're saying. So he came along and everybody was clapping, celebrating his honesty, oblivious to the fact that that same teaching has caused a lot of problems down the line. Wives and husbands who have separated, husbands telling their wives that this is wrong. I believe in tithing. I believe in giving to the kingdom of God because money is what helps preachers stay within the safe zone of integrity. I understand all of that and I'm willing to give, but not giving from the standpoint of compelling or manipulation. No, that is not something I'm going to be part of. And the woman being emotional. No, this is wrong. My pastor said, and as a consequence, marriages split, homes broken, homes that had no business breaking, children becoming wayward as a consequence of that experience. If you've been following this channel long enough, you know every single thing, every single action has a ripple effect in your life. So one small action can cause a ripple effect, can start a chain reaction of various events. As a lady, you get into a relationship with someone who's doing drugs. As a consequence, you start doing drugs. All your savings are not going to drugs. You become addicted. And after 3, 4, 5 years down the line, of which your sexual value has reduced because drugs have messed up your aesthetics, coupled with the fact that you're now older, the amount of time you spend in rehab before you get out, it becomes very difficult to find an actual partner who will take care of you. And not just that, someone you are actually interested in. I'm not saying some middle average guy, and there's nothing wrong with average guys. I'm not saying some guy who, based on your current market value, is kind of good. No, I'm talking of a high quality partner. What are the chances of you attracting that kind of person? Exactly. So that one small decision caused a downward spiral. That one small decision cost you a lot. So life is ripple effect. You've agreed upon that fact. Always listen to your instincts and your gut. Does this mean you shut out every kind of advice or every kind of well-meaning conversations from external people? No. But what this means is to consciously make decisions for yourself, not make decisions based on what other people think. Because at the end of the day, decisions decide destiny. Decisions have consequences. And once you make them, you reap the consequences, either good or bad. Nobody is going to reap the consequence of your decision, although they were the people who encouraged to make that decision. So you have to be very careful because nobody is going to take responsibility for a decision you made. So once people give you advice, put it into a big heap, analyze what is the intention of this person speaking. Why should I follow through this advice? Zuckerberg came out recently and he said, the kind of people I hire, or before I hire someone, I reverse the position. Would I work for this person? If you analyze that context, like if you dox that context, for someone holding the janitorial position, would you work for him? Exactly. So when you begin, again, I'm not trying to dispute anybody. I'm not trying to start some internet beef or solicit attention, traffic people to my page. That's against what I'm teaching. I'm trying to bring you to a point where you make decisions for yourself. And unfortunately, this is one of the hardest things for you peasants to do because you love the idea of someone else having to take responsibility for a decision you made. You love the idea of saying it was his fault. I listened to Grant Cardone and I listened to XYZ. It was he who advised me to do this. That's what most people want. Unfortunately, most people are not responsible for your life. Even though they encourage the decision, you suffer the consequence. Never in a court of law is someone about to be prosecuted and he says, he convinced me to murder that guy. He convinced me it's a good thing. Fortunately, you're the person going to jail. As long as you're not an assassin or you were paid to execute that thought, you're going to jail. In fact, to understand the point, become independent in your decisions and you'll be fine. As always, my friends, it's a pleasure speaking to you. I'll see you in the next